All Hoops Podcast.
Welcome to a deep dive into a real nail-biter of a game, UConn versus DePaul, on New Year's Day. The kind of game where even though you're up by a good margin, you still can't quite relax. That's what we're unpacking today. We've got articles, game stats, even some coach interviews, the whole 9 yards, to really understand what went down.
And it's especially intriguing
Yeah.
because on paper, UConn has just dominated DePaul historically. This was their 19th straight win against them going back to 2006. But this game had some twists and turns that make it worth a closer look.
Exactly. Final score was 81-68. UConn takes it. But that doesn't tell the whole story. This wasn't just another easy win.
Right. A huge factor here is Liam McNeely's injury. He's this freshman phenom, potential NBA lottery pick. That means top 14 draft spot. Huge deal for a college player. He rolls his ankle in the second half, and the entire mood in the arena just shifts.
It was like someone let the air out of the balloon. McNeely wasn't having his best game up to that point, but his presence on the court just changes how UConn plays. He's their leading scorer. And even when he's not scoring, he draws so much defensive attention, it opens things up for his teammates.
And that's what makes this injury so interesting to analyze. Tactically, UConn relies on McNeely's driving ability to collapse defenses, creating space for shooters like Solo Ball on the perimeter. Without him, they had to adjust on the fly.
And adjust they did. Before the injury, it was at the Solo Ball show. He was on fire in the first half, dropping 22 points, a career high, by the way, and grabbing 6 rebounds. He really stepped up in a big way.
What's impressive about Ball's performance wasn't just the scoring, it was the way he did it. He wasn't forcing shots, he moved well without the ball, waited for his opportunities within the flow of the offense, and then knocked down those big shots when they needed them.
He was like a different player out there, almost channeling Jordan Hawkins from last year, hitting those tough contested threes.
The comparison to Hawkins is apt, but what I find fascinating is that Ball is a very different type of player. Hawkins thrived in isolation, creating his own shot off the dribble. Ball, on the other hand, is more of a catch-and-shoot player. He excels at moving without the ball, finding open spaces, and knocking down shots when his teammates create opportunities for him.
So you're saying that even though both players hit those big threes, their roles within the offense are quite distinct. That's a really interesting nuance.
Precisely. And this speaks to Coach Hurley's ability to adapt his offensive schemes to the strengths of his players. With McNeely, the focus is on penetration and kickouts. Without him, the emphasis shifts to off-ball movement and finding open shooters like Ball.
But DePaul wasn't just going to roll over, especially after sensing that shift in UConn's game plan. They're a team that typically relies heavily on three-point shooting, and they saw an opening to make a comeback.
They did. They managed to cut UConn's lead down to 9 points at one point. But here's where UConn's defense deserves some credit. They made adjustments, switched to a zone defense for a few possessions to disrupt DePaul's rhythm, and held them to a low three-point percentage for the game.
That was crucial. If DePaul had been hitting their threes at their usual rate, who knows what might have happened? That comeback could have been a lot more serious.
Absolutely. And this is where the narrative of UConn having a weaker defense this year needs some scrutiny. Yes, they've given up more points than in previous seasons, but they've also shown the ability to tighten up defensively when it matters most.
Right. And there were some key moments that really shifted the momentum back in UConn's favor, like that incredible block by Jaden Ross. DePaul was driving to the basket, looking to cut the lead even further, and Ross comes out of nowhere and just swats the ball away.
Coach Hurley even highlighted that play in his post-game interview, emphasizing how those kinds of defensive plays can be game changers, especially when the offense is struggling to find its rhythm.
And you could just feel the energy shift back towards UConn after that block. And bam, back-to-back threes from Alex Caravan and Solo Ball. That felt like the knockout punch.
Those back-to-back threes were a statement, not just in terms of scoring, but also in terms of resilience. They showed that even without their star player, UConn wasn't going to crumble under pressure. They were going to find a way to win.
It's almost like they were saying, okay, DePaul, nice try, but we're not letting you steal this one from us.
Exactly, and that's what makes this game so compelling. It's not just about the final score, it's about the underlying stories, the adjustments, the moments of adversity overcome, and the glimpses of what this UConn team might be capable of, even without their star player.
And speaking of those underlying stories, there were a few off-the-court details leading up to this game that are worth mentioning. You had Jalen Stewart battling pink eye, missing some practice time. You had the team practicing at the Chicago Bulls facility.
Which is fascinating because if you remember, they originally planned to meet up with former Husky Adama Sanogo, who was playing for the G League Windy City Bulls at the time. But Sonogo got called up to the actual Bulls roster that day, so the meetup fell through.
Talk about a whirlwind experience. First, pink eye, then practicing in an NBA facility. And then their former teammate gets called up to the big leagues, all in the span of a few days.
It's almost poetic in a way. Sonogo's journey from UConn to the NBA serves as a reminder of the program's history of developing top-tier talent. And now here's McNeely, another potential lottery pick, facing his own set of challenges and opportunities.
It's like a passing of the torch almost.
Yeah.
And speaking of opportunities, there were a ton of NBA scouts at this game, right? I mean, even with McNeely's injury, his potential is undeniable.
Absolutely. Scouts are always looking for players who can make an impact at the next level. And McNeely certainly fits that bill. His injury will definitely be a factor in their evaluations, but his talent and upside are still undeniable.
And it wasn't just McNeely who got their eye. DePaul's Amocha Gibson had a solid game too, putting up 21 points and dishing out 6 assists. He's another player with NBA aspirations.
This game was truly a showcase of future NBA talent. You had 2 potential lottery picks on the court, both facing adversity, both trying to prove themselves against tough competition. It's no wonder the scouts were out in full force.
So we've got this mix of on-court action and off-court intrigue. What stands out to you most about this game? What should the listener really take away from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is UConn's resilience. Despite facing several challenges, the injury to their star player, the distractions leading up to the game, the hostile road environment, they found a way to win. And they did it by relying on their depth, their defensive adjustments, and their ability to stay composed under pressure.
Right. It wasn't always pretty. They had some sloppy moments, some turnovers, some defensive lapses, but they never gave up. They fought back, made adjustments, and ultimately proved that they could win even when things aren't going their way.
Exactly, and that's a characteristic of championship caliber teams. It's not just about talent or individual brilliance. It's about that collective will to win, that ability to overcome adversity and find a way to get the job done.
And you can't underestimate the role that Coach Hurley plays in fostering that mentality. He's known for his intensity, his passion, his demand for excellence, and you can see that reflected in the way his players compete.
Absolutely. Hurley has instilled a culture of toughness, accountability, and a relentless pursuit of victory. And that's what makes this UConn team so dangerous. They're not just talented, they're hungry. They want to win, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
And that brings us back to the big question. Can UConn maintain this level of play without McNeely? They've got a huge game coming up against Providence, who are also undefeated in conference play. Can they keep this momentum going?
That's the million-dollar question. Providence is a tough physical team. That presents a different set of challenges than DePaul. They're known for their defense, their rebounding, and their ability to control the tempo of the game.
So it's going to be a battle of styles almost. UConn likes to push the pace, play fast, score in transition. Providence is more methodical, more deliberate, more focused on grinding out possessions and wearing down their opponents.
Precisely. And that's what makes this matchup so intriguing. It's a clash of philosophies, a test of wills. Can UConn's speed and athleticism overcome Providence's physicality and discipline?
And can they do it without McNeely, who is such a key piece of their offensive puzzle?
That's the unknown factor. His absence will force other players to step up, to take on bigger roles, to embrace the challenge of proving that they can win even without their star player.
So it's not just about strategy or tactics anymore. It's about mentality, about resilience, about proving that they're more than just a one-man show.
Exactly. This game against Providence will be a true test of UConn's character, their depth, their ability to adapt and overcome. And that's what makes it so compelling. We're not just watching a basketball game. We're witnessing a team at a crossroads, a team trying to define its identity and prove that it's capable of achieving greatness, even when faced with adversity.
And that's what makes college basketball so captivating, isn't it? It's not just about wins and losses. It's about the stories, the journeys, the moments of triumph and heartbreak that these young athletes experience.
It's about the lessons they learn, the bonds they form, and the memories they create that will last a lifetime. And that's something worth celebrating, regardless of the final score.
Well said. And you know what? I have a feeling this UConn team is going to give us plenty more to talk about as the season unfolds. They've got the talent, the coaching, and most importantly, the heart to make a deep run. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's circle back to that DePaul game for a moment. I mean, you had some truly intriguing details surrounding this matchup.
It really was a game with its share of unique storylines. We haven't even touched on assistant coach Luke Murray welcoming a new baby right before the game.
Oh, right. And his dad,
Yeah.
the legendary Bill Murray, was in the stands cheering on the Huskies. Talk about adding a little Hollywood flair to the atmosphere.
It's those little things, those human interest stories that make college basketball so relatable. It reminds you that these coaches and players aren't just robots. They're real people with families and lives outside of basketball.
And it just adds another layer of depth to the whole experience.
Yeah.
You got the on-court drama, the strategic battles, the individual performances, and then you have these glimpses into the lives of the people involved. It's a fascinating mix.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that even amidst the intensity and pressure of a college basketball season, there's still room for joy, celebration, and a sense of community.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into UConn's victory over DePaul, what's the one thing you want the listener to walk away with? What's the key takeaway here?
I think the key takeaway is that this UConn team is more than just Liam McNeely. They've got depth. They've got resilience, and they've got a coach who knows how to get the best out of his players. They're going to face challenges, they're going to have to make adjustments, but they've shown that they have what it takes to compete at the highest level.
And that makes the rest of their season all the more exciting to watch. How will they adapt to McNeely's absence? Who will step up and fill the void? Can they maintain this winning streak against tough conference opponents?
These are the questions that will keep us on the edge of our seats as we follow UConn's journey. And that's the beauty of college basketball. It's unpredictable, it's full of surprises, and it's a constant reminder that anything is possible.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the game itself to the impact of McNeely's injury, to the intriguing details that made this matchup so unique.
You've analyzed the strategies, the performances, and the underlying stories that make college basketball so compelling. And we've left you with some questions to ponder as we all eagerly anticipate UConn's next move.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world of college basketball. We'll be here to guide you every step of the way.
Enjoy the games.